Welcome to CBC Weekly Talk. I'm Anastasia Lavrina. This week, Defense Minister of Azerbaijan Zakir Hasanov has met with the visiting Georgian delegation led by Chief of Georgian Defense Forces, Georgi Mashashvili. The site highlighted that bilateral and trilateral cooperation among Azerbaijan, Turkey and Georgia play an important role in ensuring security in the region. It's also important to understand the prospects and the potential for trilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan, Georgia and Armenia, if there is a real possibility for that after the recent meeting of three leaders at a panel session Moving Mountains, Building Security in the South Caucasus as part of Munich Security Conference. My guest now is Victor Kipiani, chair of the Georgian think tank organization Geocase. Mr. Kipiani, hello and welcome to our program.
Thank you, and pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for us to host you in our program today. And let's start with the visit of Georgian delegation to Azerbaijan this week, where two sides spoke also about the security aspects in the region and military cooperation between Azerbaijan and Georgia. How do you think about the prospects of the bilateral cooperation in this particular sphere?
Well, the prospects should be quite promising and quite encouraging. Those prospects of the historical region when we started our cooperation around the regional pipelines, and that laid down strong foundations for progressing our cooperation in that way. And the second reason for such an optimism is the modernity and the challenges which exist in the region and especially around the region. The war in Ukraine definitely put the South Caucasus into different contexts in terms of security environments, and therefore building up on that good spirit of the cooperation which we had from the beginning of 90s last century should definitely continue for the future times as well. So any type of contacts, including bilateral visits, bilateral discussions or round talks, etc., round table talks, etc., would definitely should be and could be contributing with new substance.
Mr. Kipiani, we know about successful bilateral cooperation in energy sphere and transport communication, and this time we saw that the sides are paying particular specific attention to the security matter. Do you think that from the bilateral cooperation, strengthening cooperation and security issues will also benefit the other countries in the region?
Yes, it should. It should, and not because paying courtesy to Azerbaijan TV on this particular instance, but I've always been of opinion that our bilateral ties and our access of Tbilisi, Baku should really serve as a good example for other nations to build or to introduce their contribution and their input as well. So this is a really very high time to demonstrate or to show the full potentials of our bilateral access, which, as I've said, are very much strongly hinged on different regional scale projects and high degree of political approximation or understanding, I would say, between two countries, our two nations. And of course, you know, economics today matter, especially when we take into consideration that the forthcoming mega project, the big project, which is the middle transport corridor, and we also, when we take into account the announced Black Sea electricity cable project.
Yes, about Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania, and Hungary.
That puts us into qualitatively different contexts when we should double or triple our efforts, and therefore attract other contributors as well, regionally and non-regional too.
Mr. Kipiani, what's interesting, just recently, Tova Klar, special representative of the European Union towards the South Caucasus, mentioned that there is a real potential for development of cooperation between Azerbaijan, Georgia and Armenia, and the European Union will be happy to see more active cooperation between three countries in different spheres. After the recent meetings at the panel of the Munich Security Conference, do you think that there is a real potential for three leaders to have such kind of meetings in the near future, or any kind of cooperation between three countries?
That was a good sign, but I won't be saying that that was, frankly, you know, I came across various references to that meeting saying that that was the trilateral meeting. Actually, that was not trilateral meeting, I would say. That was trilateral appearance by three leaders of the South Caucasian nations. But still, it sends at least, a message that those meetings could continue in the same vein. However, we should be treating that appearance, as I've said, very cautiously and with very modest optimism. We saw that divergences, especially between Azerbaijan and Armenia, are quite far apart. Of course, each side expresses its willingness to move ahead the peace talks and substantial negotiations, but there are a number of issues, starting with Lachin corridor, ending up with various others, even when it goes to proper name of the disputed area, let's say in this, disputed, at least, from both perspectives, Mr. Aliyev's proposal to rename, not to use any more reference to Nagorno-Karabakh, which was disputed and which was hotly debated the panel by Prime Minister Pashinyan. So many other issues, which definitely, and then that appearance, those discussions clearly show that there is much to be done in that respect. Where Tbilisi stands in that context, of course, Tbilisi stands on the side of bringing a better understanding into that trilateral format. Honestly, when we speak about divergency of interest between Baku, Yerevan, and Tbilisi, the compelling incentive between those three should be to disconnect, for once and ever, the South Caucasus region from the connotation which equals rivalry, disturbances, wars, and conflicts, all the toxic connotations you can think of. And especially in this world, which becomes so much competitive, for investments and for finances, I think that could be a big stimulus for us to understand that in this very tightly competitive region, very tightly congested and very tightly contested world, we should somehow create, that platform of a better understanding and better prospects for the sake of our people. So that is very important. So if that appearance during the Munich conference is a slight, very subtle, but still a glimpse into that direction, of course, that is very much welcome. But we'll see. That is another reason and another compelling reason for us to find proper resources and to identify all the very much required efforts to transform the South Caucasus into the competitive economic platform, something which would be well advanced in terms of attracting investments, for raising funds, because if you also look at the world, how much the regionality, how much the so-called hub and spoke regionality model is evolving, when regional gravitational centers would be having a much powerful say. I think it's a quite right time for us to unite our efforts, to unite our capacities, and to show the South Caucasus as a competitive business and economic unity. Perhaps, speaking about the final shapes or final contours of such a single or united market may seem a bit premature to some of our listeners, but that is the destiny, that should be the final point of destination. We all should be moving ahead without losing time, and with enough patience, and with enough solidarity, and with enough understanding.
You said about the appearance of three leaders in the Munich Security Conference, not a trilateral meeting, but more about the appearance. But what is really good, because I think it was the first such kind of meeting. We all remember the meeting between two leaders from Azerbaijan and Georgia in Davos Economic Forum, which happened relatively recently. And this time, Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, decided to join the meeting, and it can be a start of the possible way for the future cooperation between three countries. Do you have any idea why Armenia decided to join this panel discussion this time? And as you mentioned about the prospects for the region itself, economy and transport communications for the future, we have it between our two countries, between Azerbaijan and Georgia. How do you see this process when the third country, Armenia, may decide and how exactly join the existing or new projects?
Let me please be very careful in formulating my response, but we all have witnessed the fallouts of the second Nagorno-Karabakh war from a military standpoint. So that being sort of, a fast, strong message to our Armenian friends and colleagues. The second was and has been the reaction of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. And we also saw how Armenia has expressed the dissatisfaction with Russia in particular, implementing or fulfilling its commitments or obligations under that treaty. We also saw quite promising dynamics between Turkey and Armenia. Would that be signaling disconnecting Armenia from Russian orbit or moving Armenia into some other direction? Of course, time would show us. And we'll see it in the foreseeable future. I'm pretty sure it's not the matter of the distant future. So I think that all those points, in all, they would be giving us some basic stating that Armenia could become, hopefully, and fingers crossed, more cooperative. Because in one way or another, whether there was a middle corridor or any other projects, those projects would go ahead with Armenia's participation or without Armenia's participation. So I would say that our partners in Armenia are just destined, in a good sense of this word, not because of Azerbaijan, not because of Georgia, but primarily because in the interest of Armenia itself, to join and become fully fledged participants of any regional initiative. So I think, that is sort of, the reality of the time. And that reality dictates them to be more flexible, more amenable, and more accommodating as well.
Could you tell us more about Georgia's role as a bridge between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
We have all the reasons to dream of a peaceful and stable South Caucasus. We have good relations and partnership relations with each nation. We historically enjoy those good relations, and we very much committed to pursuing the same vein. We have Azeri nationals, Azeri ethnic minority in Georgia, which are Georgian nationals, and we have Armenian ethnic minority in Georgia, also our compatriots, our nationals. So I think that these are quite clear the reasons and clear incentives for us to mediate or facilitate stability and peace wherever we were able to do that. And on top of that, I've been always saying that every nation of South Caucasus could double or could even triple, its economic capacity by having a good interconnectedness and interdependency. So I think that the future of this region, competitiveness of this region, lays across building up interconnectedness and sound interdependency. And that is something, which Baku and Tbilisi have started realizing long before with Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan and South Caucasus pipeline. It's, as I've said, and I'm repeating it again, it's time for our colleagues in Yerevan, in Armenia, to understand the same and to look into the reality and to grasp with that and to catch up, with that reality.
You said about the dissatisfaction in Armenia by the position of Russia in this post-conflict development. And we also know about the mission the European Union said to Armenia on the border with Azerbaijan. So talking about the future development of the region, do you think that it can bring some results? As we many times discussed before, the decision to send the European mission to the region was not agreed with Azerbaijan. That's why from one side we may think that there will not be any practical results in near future. But what do you think, what people in Georgia may think about the role of the European Union and this particular decision?
We focus on specifics of EU mission when it gets down to the standoff or the, let's say, political discord between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Of course, we appreciate that there is a bad legacy of the Minsk formats. And that's really bad legacy, which obviously has its own impacts and its own influence, and Baku has its own peculiar view on EU mission. But, well, from Georgian perspective, as you say, we have a full scope of cooperation with European Union. We believe that European Union could contribute in terms of its sophisticated and impartial approach. That's our belief. We have various venues and various platforms, that Georgia is is the only South Caucasus nation which has declared and moving toward the path of the European integration. So, of course, we're very much interested to have more European Union in the region. But that is our perception, that is our vision. And I think, that presence could contribute to making the security environment healthier and better. Of course, the final say is up to the authorities in Armenia and Azerbaijan. We very much hope that the EU perspective and the EU issue could serve as a united platform and a platform which would sort of, help with eliminating any issues of contentious issues between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
We started to speak about the prospects for cooperation between Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia. And I have to ask you a question about the initiative which was brought by Turkey and Azerbaijan immediately after the end of the Second Karabakh War, about the initiative of cooperation within the format 3+3. We all remember the position of Georgia, and taking into account the recent, I will say, problems appeared in the relations between Azerbaijan and Iran. Can we say that this initiative is no longer valid, or the sides may decide to come back to discussion of this idea in the near future or after some time?
Yes, thank you for stating the official position by Georgia. We still stand by that position, standing for obvious reasons, because nothing has changed on the ground. The occupation of Georgia by Russian Federation continues. That has been added by some complexity, as you also pointed out, between Azerbaijan and Iran. Of course, we all are aspiring towards solid and stable formats of the cooperation, but neither platform, no format could be the source for domination, the implicit source or disguised source for the not respecting norms of international law and principles of international law. So I hear Azerbaijan's position to the extent that we all know what the Georgia position is. I think that any type of that partnership should be based on mutual respect and equality. And if those basic principles are breached or violated or deviated in one way or another, there could not be any prospects for a long-term cooperation within any type of formats, including 3+3.
So for near future, it's most relevant to speak about the trilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan, Georgia and Turkey, and maybe after some time between Azerbaijan, Armenia and Georgia, right?
have to be in rush. I think that we have plenty of food thoughts and plenty of the ingredients to build up on our bilateral cooperation and our trilateral cooperation. So time would show, and reality should also change in the region. Again, when I'm saying that the war in Ukraine could give a better indication in which way the security environment goes in the region, that's something that where we should keep a patience and wait and to see more clear lines. So far and so on, unless that picture does not crystallize, of course, relying on the bilateral ties and trilateral format seems to me more realistic and more practicable as well.
I have to ask you another question as well. 24th of February, the anniversary since the situation which we observed between Russia and Ukraine. A year has passed in those events. How do you see the changes within the South Caucasus within the last year?
I think the changes are primarily of a trade and economic nature. So that is, by the way, something which all three leaders have also been confirmed when making that appearance in Munich, as I've said. In terms of security and political outcomes, unfortunately, the war in Ukraine is very much focused on the exploiting military potentials, let's put it this way. And this is a very sad reality that diplomacy and politics are practically absent and silent. And therefore, in these conditions and these circumstances, for Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia to speak about mid-term objectives, or not to mention long-term objectives, I think, again, it's not in touch with reality. So in this situation, the basic requirements which we have to cling to is to fend off any escalation from the region and do utmost of our efforts to keep the stability as much as we can. I think getting beyond those very basic requirements of your own region in terms of cooperation, in terms of stability, in terms of peace, I think, again, would be off the mark, because there are so many uncertainties in the wider context, and there's so many issues which still remain in the flux. So we have to save for a better future. I don't expect that in these circumstances, anyone would be able to make a definitive predictions for this year or for the next year.
We started from the bilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan and Georgia, and you rightly mentioned the energy cooperation. And we know that the events between Russia and Ukraine also changed the energy map of Europe. And today the countries in Europe rely on Azerbaijan, on Caspian Sea, on Georgia, on Turkey in development of the Southern Gas Corridor, in addition of some amount of gas from other countries as well. So let's finalize our discussion with prospects for energy cooperation of Georgia and the European Union. How exactly Georgia are willing to contribute in this, in the development of this energy agenda between the Caspian region and the European Union countries?
Contributing to the success of that region of that project is so logical and so natural. I've always been saying that expanding potentials of Azerbaijan and expanding potentials of the Caspian region would not be possible to the largest extent without full engaging Georgia. And same time, sustainability of Georgian economy and prospects of Georgian economy is very much reliant on engagement by Azerbaijan and Caspian nations of the Caspian region. So we're natural allies in that respect. We're quite natural partners in that respect, because we reinforce each other's potentials and we make each other stronger. So the common sense dictates that having Georgia as strongly embedded into those projects, as well as for those projects, to run across Georgia, and for Georgia to respond as reliably and as responsibly in terms of discharging its own obligations speaks to the overall success. So this is as clear as it is.
Mr. Kipiani, thank you so much for joining our program today. It was a real pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. You watch CBC Weekly Talk. I'm Anastasia Lavrina. Stay with us and see you in the next edition.